fairy tales are something that we've all grown up with, I'm sure. We've all heard the story of Rumpelstiltskin, Snow White, Cinderella, Rapunzel, but we've all probably heard them from the Disney perspective with the happy ending and none of the gore that is typically associated with the originals in the Grimm's Fairy Tales. Now this is a book that one of my best friends gifted me for my birthday, and this is actually all of the stories. I mean, look at that. And just an appreciation post before I go any further. I mean, look at the artwork in this. Look at the gold edges, and this is just a piece of absolute artwork. And if you like reading, then and you're interested in the sort of the origins of the Grimm's fairy tales or fairy tales in general, the Grimm's ones, do have a look at getting this book. This is an absolute amazing book. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Grimm Fairy Tales. I am slowly making my way through this. I'm savouring it. I'm definitely only reading 1 or 2 a night so I can really take it all in and enjoy it. Each of these stories are probably only about 4 or 5 pages long, so they're not very long at all. They're really good, easy reading. Just before I go to bed, I will read 1 or 2, as I said, and really does help me to chill and absolutely adore this. So this was originally known as the Children's and Household Tales, and this is actually a collection of German fairy tales, and this was created by the brothers Grimm. So that's Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, and this actually was created in 1812. So these have been around for a really long time. The first edition of this, as I say, came out in 1812, and it had 86 stories in it. The second volume had 70 stories, which came in 1815, and then the third volume came in 1822, and that had a total of 120 stories. So the first volumes had a lot of criticism behind them. So obviously they're marketed as fairy tales, they're marketed as children's stories, but they're really not suitable for kids. For example, we all know the story of Cinderella from Disney's perspective. She loses her glass slipper and she ends up being found by the prince after her sisters tried the slipper on and it didn't fit. That's Disney's narrative. This one, much darker. So Cinderella wanted to go to the ball. Her evil stepmother said, if you can pick these seeds, these almonds, you can sort them out, then you may go. You have 1 hour. So she did that, and she said to her stepmother, can I go? And she said, you can, but you have no dress. If you sort these seeds out in this hour, then you will get your dress. And she got, again, like she did the first time, she got help from the birds and she managed to do it. Lo and behold, her mother didn't let her go, but Cinderella went to her bird friends and asked for a dress of silver and gold, and they gave her one. She went to the ball. Now, the whole sort of slipper thing, fine, but when it came to the prince actually speaking to the ugly stepsisters as we know them, the first one cut off her toes, or her big toe, to be able to fit in. The prince went, yes, you're my bride, took her away, but the birds were singing, oh no, she's got blood coming out of her shoe, she's not the one. He realised, took her back. The other stepsister actually cut off part of her heel for the shoe to fit on her foot. And again, the birds dobbed her in, and at that point they found out that actually it was Cinderella, and she then went to live with the prince and got that ending. Very different to the story that we're told. So you can kind of understand why people were saying these aren't actually for kids, are they? So many changes have actually come through the edition. So for instance, in Snow White and Hansel and Gretel, originally it was an evil mother, but that was changed to stepmother. There is rumours that the reason they changed from mother to stepmother is that motherhood was sacred, so that they didn't kind of want to tarnish that. So they kind of came up with that concept of evil stepmother that we all know today. They also removed any sexual references. So in the original, Rapunzel innocently asked why her dress was getting tight, and she then revealed to the witch Dame Gothel that her pregnancy was there, and the prince's visits that obviously had resulted in a pregnancy. But because they removed that, violence became a lot more prevalent into the story, particularly when they were talking about punishing villains. So that's kind of in the nutshell the history of where sort of these stories have evolved. Now the Grimm's brothers do have a really interesting history themselves. I won't go into it in today's video, but it's definitely worth looking into around kind of their upbringing, how they did have a lot of loss and they did end up losing a lot of relatives and having to be quite self-sufficient. They collected stories from history, but also from sort of friends who have and family members who have told them stories, and they've adapted them to go into here. Now, the thing I do love around these stories is that there's so many more than just what we know. So within here, for instance, the things that I do recognise: Cinderella, Rapunzel, Little Red Riding Hood, Rumpelstiltskin, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. There's things like Hansel and Gretel in here as well, and that is just, they're just the ones I recognise. But there are so many different so many different stories in here that I think would be so interesting to read and to explore. But I feel like fairy tales are one of those things that we're all told. We're all brought up on some sort of fairy tale, be it Hansel and Gretel, be it, you know, Snow White. That was all something you'll recognise. Having the comparisons between how Disney have done this narrative versus the Grimm stories, I'm really interested in finding out. I'm really interested in seeing actually what was changed and what was added to make it the way that we know it to be. One of the differences as well, which I will sort of go through, is Snow White. Now, Snow White is one of the ones that I absolutely loved growing up, and I won't give it all away because I really would encourage, if you are into reading and you are into kind of the Grimm stories, to look at these. So we all know that Snow White eats a poison apple and that the one true kiss is what wakes her up. Not in this, it isn't. It's actually what I'd say more realistic and a lot funnier. So she is obviously in her coffin, and the king's son decided to have it carried away by the servants on their shoulders, and they tripped. They tripped over a tree stump, and what happened when they did that was that the piece of poisonous apple came out of her throat and she woke up. This is actually a really good example of how the villains got really punished. So the queen, the evil stepmother, was not allowed to the feast, but it says iron slippers had already been put upon the fire and they were brought in with tongs and set before her. She was then forced to put on the red shoes and danced until she dropped dead. And that is the end of the story. So it's really quite interesting how, obviously I know that she does die in the Disney version, but the fact she was tortured is probably the way to put it, and told to dance in these shoes and then she died. It just gives that kind of brutality to it, which you just won't get anywhere else. This is something I could talk about for hours. I mean, if you guys do have any interest in me going through a few of these, like reading these, let me know. It's something that I will be doing anyway, so if you guys want me to share any of them with you, if there's any stories in here, Grimm stories that you've heard about and you want me to read, let me know and I'll be happy to do that. That's what I really wanted to do today, guys, was just share these with you and just kind of give you a bit of the history around them. I think it's so cool. Let me know what you think around the Grimm fairy tales. Do you like them? Do you not? Do you think they're unnecessarily violent? Do you think that we should have some sort of story which is a 15 and we can actually see these stories in their true form? You know, we can watch things like Once Upon a Time and they still won't have that true form behind them, but I think it's great. But yeah, guys, do leave a like, leave a comment. Like I said, let me know what you think about Grimm fairy tales, if you like them, if you don't like them, if you think Disney is the ultimate ruler, and hit that subscribe button. We've got a lot of exciting stuff coming later this year, and I shall see you in the next one.